Okay. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to today's press conference outside of the United States Capitol, sponsored by the Acacia Center for Justice, Amica Center for Immigrant Rights, many other organizations that work with unaccompanied kids. A big thank you to Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley, who is a champion for vulnerable kids. We're here today because the government is trying to shut down the Unaccompanied Kids program, which provides lawyers for children who arrive at our nation alone without a parent as they defend themselves in immigration proceedings. We have seen children as young as 2, children who can't speak yet, have to defend themselves in court against a trained government attorney whose only job is to deport them, and a judge who has to take the time to explain court proceedings to a 2-year-old who needs a booster seat but doesn't get a lawyer. It doesn't make sense. And Senator Merkley is a champion for us, continues to be a champion for us. I want to turn it to him now. Thank you.
Wow. It's hard to imagine what more cruel policy the Trump administration could undertake than cutting off legal representation to children. As these signs indicate, these blue signs, 26,000 kids, legal representation taken away in the immigration system. You know, it was back in 2018 that I heard that the administration was considering separating children from their parents in order to make their life difficult, in order to dissuade immigration. And I thought no government of the United States would ever do that. No government of the United States would deliberately mistreat children, bring harm to children as an official policy. And my team said, well, there's one way to find out, go down to the border. And so that's how in 2018 I became the first member of Congress to go down, go into a warehouse, and see those children, some so small they were just knee-high to a grasshopper, being separated from their parents. Well, now here we are, 7 years later, and again, I am stunned by the inhumanity and cruelty of the Trump administration and their direct violation of law. That's the thing that we have on our side, is that the law says that we will provide representation to children if money is appropriated. And we appropriated $5 billion to help out children across this country have a fair chance to present their case before judges. Imagine that little child all by themselves, having to represent themselves before a judge. We know this is impossible. So a bipartisan bill said we will make sure children have a fair chance, fair due process. And that's what's being taken away. Now, I want to really thank the group of organizations that received funding through Acacia, that took a court case and won that court case just a little while ago to restore this funding. Good job. Good job to all of you. It shouldn't take a court case to do the basic responsibility of providing counsel to children. Once again, I say to America, we are not that country that wants to abuse children. And, well, deliberately separating from their parents is a vast abuse. Deliberately taking away their ability to represent their opportunities under the law is another horrific abuse. We're going to work together to make sure we stand that children in the United States of America, if they win their case and they become part of our community, we want them to thrive. If they don't win their case and they're returned to a home country, we want them to thrive. But we always treat children with respect and decency for their best future. Let's stand together for children. Let's stand together for the great work that these organizations do to make sure children have a fair shot for a great future. Thank you.
Let's say thank you to the Senator one more time for his advocacy. Thank you, Senator. My name is Michael Lukens. I'm the Executive Director of the Amica Center for Immigrant Rights, based here in D.C. I am going to level set us today and introduce you to why we're here. The government has taken upon itself to target unaccompanied children in its ongoing campaign against immigrants. Over the last 6 weeks, they have made clear that they believe children can go to court without a lawyer, without an advocate, without someone trusted besides them. On March 21st, Health and Human Services terminated a national contract that provides funding for unaccompanied children to have that lawyer, to have that advocate. This should not be a political issue. We should all agree that children, the most vulnerable, young as toddlers, need protection. This isn't a political issue, this is an issue of our own humanity and how we treat our communities. If this funding were to go away, tens of thousands of children will lose their attorneys. And the senator's correct, they will have to go to court alone. I don't know about you, I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. They would not be able to go to court alone. A child who has gone through trauma, who has gone through fleeing to this country, cannot go to court alone.
That's right.
We, the movement, the organizational plaintiffs, Amica Center for Immigrant Rights, Immigrant Defender Law Center, and Justice Action Center brought suit. And last night, in the Northern District of California, we won a temporary restraining order against this. The judge said the government cannot cut this funding, and they cannot cut services. And we are grateful that the courts are recognizing the irreparable harm to tens of thousands of children that will happen if this appropriated funding is not spent. That's the first step in a long fight. There's a lot of court battles left. There's a lot of advocacy left. There's a lot of speaking to members of Congress. And a lot of people should be calling and saying, keep this funding alive for those tens of thousands of children. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Nick Cuneo, and I'm the founding medical director for the HEAL Refugee Health and Asylum Collaborative based in Baltimore, Maryland, and an assistant professor of pediatrics and medicine at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. I'm speaking today not on behalf of my affiliated institutions, but as a medical expert for Physicians for Human Rights and as a pediatrician with experience caring for unaccompanied kids in a variety of different clinical settings, including my community-based programs I oversee, my primary care office, to my hospitals, emergency departments, and inpatient wards. Unaccompanied children have often faced many overlapping layers of trauma, hardship, and loss by the time we meet them as healthcare providers. Mistreatment of various forms can happen in their country of origin, en route to the border, or after they've crossed into the United States. Even once they are placed with a sponsor, the shock of being immersed in a completely foreign country on their own can be substantial. I've seen cases of previously verbal 4-year-olds refusing to speak for weeks, or previously healthy adolescents attempting self-harm for the first time. Without a trusted adult to defend their interests, such as an appointed legal representative, children of all ages can get lost with potentially devastating consequences. Navigating everyday situations can prove extraordinarily challenging or at times perilous. I've taken care of young men who have suffered injuries from being forced to labor in unsafe conditions, and young women who have disappeared overnight after meeting up with strangers they met online. I've seen teens languishing for months in the hospital for no other reason than the fact that there is no one advocating for their timely discharge. Access to legal representation can increase the likelihood that children will find stable, protective placements rather than being sent back to danger. Trauma manifests differently across developmental stages, but regardless of age, the experience of being forced to recount details of past abuses, particularly within a complex and adversarial setting, such as an immigration court, is universally stressful. There's ample research documenting the negative effects of such re-traumatization, which can exacerbate symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health conditions. But there's also the common sense most parents are able to cultivate through watching their children learn how to navigate their worlds that guides us. Imagine for a minute you are a 6-year-old boy who saw both your parents killed by a local gang back home after they collaborated with the police in prosecuting a gang member. Perhaps you were then sent with an older cousin to journey to the United States in search of safety, only for that cousin to be put in detention once you crossed over, with you ending up in foster placement. Now imagine, after months living with a strange family, being asked to articulate your case before a judge in an intimidating courtroom without any sort of anticipatory guidance or preparation. A version of this scenario plays out all too often across this country. For children who we do not consider legally competent to consent to the health care they are deserved on their own, we cannot in good faith expect them to represent themselves before an inaccessible immigration system. Legal representation is not a luxury for these children, it is a lifeline. Our response today will determine whether these children find the safety they deserve or are abandoned to fear and suffering. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and many thanks to Senator Merkley again, and the nearly 1/3 of the Senate, as well as 100 House members who have stood up for children in this very dire time where their legal representation is in danger. Although we celebrate that a federal judge temporarily restored funding for those children, we know that our fight is not over. This administration is waging an unprecedented attack on our communities, coming after lawyers who stand up for children and for immigrants, and defying court orders as a matter of course. We call on members of Congress across the political spectrum to stand with children and protect their rights to legal representation as guaranteed under the TVPRA, which is bipartisan, and congressional appropriations. My organization, the National Immigrant Justice Center, provides services to about 11,000 low-income immigrants and asylum seekers each year. Our work includes a children's protection project where our team has defended the rights of thousands of detained and released children who are facing deportation. We currently represent about 500 children, and that representation lifeline, as the doctor put it, is under attack. The children we serve have frequently survived abuse, trafficking, and persecution before they turn to the United States for protection. They come from all parts of the world, speak a variety of languages, and range from infants to 17-year-olds. When they enter the United States, they are placed in federal custody and face deportation charges they do not understand. In court, they face an ICE prosecutor who actively seeks their deportation, with hearings scheduled faster than ever, where children have to present complex relief applications. Increasingly, they also face unnecessary barriers to their reunification with their loved ones and their family in the United States, and they experience the terrorizing presence of ICE in their communities, schools, and homes. Despite these unique vulnerabilities, the Trump administration has twice tried to take away one of the only safety nets they have, which is access to experienced immigration lawyers who can help them present their cases in court. It should surprise no one that the same president who separated thousands of children from their parents is now seeking to deport kids without even an ounce of fairness or dignity. By robbing kids of legal representation, the administration will return these children to violence, trafficking, and abuse. Now, the majority of these children actually qualify for relief in the United States. However, they cannot win without an attorney by their side, because immigration law, as many of you know, has been compared to the tax code for its complexity. In no other context would we expect a child to face such high stakes without an attorney by their sides. And I'll just close by saying, over the next month or more, we urge members of Congress to protect the TVPRA, to oppose the anti-children and anti-immigrant reconciliation package that is being considered at the moment, and protect the appropriated funds for children's legal representation. Now more than ever, we need Congress and the courts to protect the rule of law and basic principles of fairness for these children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Senator Merkley and to all of my colleagues. My name is Susan Reed, and I'm the director of the Michigan Immigrant Rights Center. I'm a lawyer and I'm a mom, but you don't have to be a lawyer and you don't have to be a mom to know that little kids and big kids cannot represent themselves in court. Yes. Children are children, no matter where they were born, and it is manifestly unfair to put a child up against an ICE prosecutor. Even the ICE lawyers don't like kids versus ICE, right? That's not a fight they want, and it's not a fight we can tolerate as Americans. How can we accept it and call it a justice system? Hiring a lawyer is not just a formality for our kids going through some kind of a process. It's everything to them. We win our cases for kids because the law does protect them when someone who knows the law is by their side. I've been representing kids for 20 years. I've seen the way that with lawyers, kids win their cases, but without them, they lose, and the loss shapes the rest of their lives. I should not have to explain that I have a 6-year-old client today. I have a 3-year-old client today, but I won't be able to continue to employ the lawyer who goes to court with them every day, and I may not be able to continue to represent them myself because of this funding, because of this contract termination. I don't have to explain the absurdity of a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old representing themselves in court. But we have 800 clients in Michigan, more than 800, including a lot of teenagers. And teenagers get a bad rep, but I love them too. And I want to represent the 14-year-old and her baby who fled incest by a stepfather in a remote community that couldn't protect her from him. I want to represent the 16-year-old who was perceived as gay in a country where that meant certain violence and even death. I don't want to tell them that the promise I made to represent them is a promise I can't keep anymore. These children and youth are survivors, but they're not lawyers. You know, many people ask, why can't volunteer lawyers help them? Well, our pro bono program was cut as well. And very few lawyers in Michigan will take these cases because they require linguistic skills and culturally competent practices. They require practice in both state and federal courts. And in my state, they require 3-hour trips to immigration court in Detroit from Paw Paw and Grand Rapids and Ottawa County and Kalamazoo for a high-stakes situation that even lawyers are scared of. Why wouldn't kids be scared of it? Our few volunteer lawyers might tell you that they need more hand-holding than the toddlers they represent because they find immigration law so complex. I have an incredibly skilled and caring team based in Michigan, ready to continue serving kids and communities, ready to make their cases and secure the freedom and safety that they deserve, and that the immigration law and the anti-trafficking law and appropriations made by Congress promise. These are our highest ideals. And my Michigan and our America can do right by children, not for 2 more weeks, but for as long as we hold these values. Children are children, no matter where they are born. And I know that those who can understand this will keep our work going for these kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much again, everybody. And before we turn to questions, I just want to round us out. My name is Bilal Askariar. I'm with the Acacia Center for Justice. I want to take a moment and point this out. 130,000 letters to Congress in a month saying Congress should defend the Unaccompanied Kids program. So let's just take a moment to reflect on that. Senator Merkley and the other champions that we have in Congress know what Susan Reed said is true, know what Dr. Nick Cuneo said is true, know what all of our speakers today said is true. It's a very simple question. When you see a kid who's lost, is looking for help, do you turn them away? That's what we're talking about. When a child comes to our doorstep as the United States of America, alone, who has been failed by society, do we turn them away and say, no, not you? Do we force them to represent themselves before a judge and an immigration lawyer who's trying to deport them back to the harm that they were fleeing? No. Very simply, no. Children are children. They have rights no matter where they're born, and that's the kind of country that we're fighting for. I urge everyone who's watching to take action and defend the Unaccompanied Kids program.